Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Punatu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarika, are you new to the class? And Brinda?
Yeah, I'm new to the class. I'm Brinda. I just started today. Surekha had given me the reference.
Oh, I see. Okay, great.
Hello, ma'am. I'm also new to the class. I have attended one session earlier, few months back.
Okay. So you are aware that we are studying?
Yeah, I have the book.
Okay, great. So we're studying.
Sorry, I am not aware of the book.
Okay, so this is the book we are studying. How do you know what you know? And we are in the topic on the 8th chapter, which was called, what was the name of this chapter? It was about how our nature makes us think in a certain way. That's what we are currently studying, how nature determines judgment. And it's a very important thing for us to understand in all these ramifications we are about to do today. And one of the things that we will understand, hopefully today, is the role of dialogue and discussion when we are trying to coordinate with others, because I have my nature, you have your nature. My nature forces me to see things in a particular way. Your nature forces you to see things in a particular way. Now, can we dialogue this? It just sounds impossible, right? How can you even dialogue this? But anyway, we will come to that point. First and foremost, we must recollect and remind ourselves about what is really our nature. How does that nature come about? The nature comes about because of our distance from the self. Our self, the divine self, is homogeneous, omnipotent, omniscient, same in all of us. And then each one of us has become an individual. That means we've gone away from this original divine self of ours. And in this process of going away, we have hardened into becoming a particular type of entity, whatever that entity is. If it's a tiger, then it's become a tiger. And if it's Elsie, then it's become Elsie. If everybody has become whatever they have become. And this distance that we are from the self, that distance makes us think in a particular way. The closer we go to the self, the more our thoughts will start converging with one another. That's why you find great people across various geographies, across various time, across eras, tell us largely the same ideas. Because as that gap reduces, the vision starts becoming more and more alike. Okay, so this is what we have been studying. Let's finish studying this and then we will go to the part on how discussion helps, doesn't help. We'll worry about that later. Everybody is good up to this point. Does anyone have?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Yes. So we're talking about how the closer you are to the self, the more what you see becomes the same. So when we're talking about like the three philosophies, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita, are they trying to? Is it us who is looking at the philosophies differently?
Yes. Depending on who you are, you will interpret those verses in that manner. And as you go closer and closer to the self, you reach Advaita. You start thinking that has to be so. It seems natural. See, some of us began our lives as deep believers in God, maybe. Oh, that's probably how our background was. And then as we grew up, our concept of that divine, of the transcendental reality, can keep changing. As you mature, see that the child thinks of God as largely some kind of Santa Claus who will, you sort of be good, and then the nice Santa Claus will give you something good. So a relationship with God is like that. And then as you mature, the relationship deepens, widens, until you come to the absolute state of non-duality. It's not easy. It's not an easy jump to make. But, some people just cannot accept that idea. In some cultures, when people have said things like Anal Haq, they actually kill those people. Anal Haq means I am God. Sufis say this. And their compatriots, the people around them, they kill them. Cannot accept such an notion. So across geographies, across eras, people have spoken about the divine within, the divine being the original nature. And across geographies, across eras, there have been people who have hated them for saying that. So I mean, it's almost like both are continuing. It's not like at any stage, one side wins and the other doesn't. I mean, like both sides are continuing throughout all the eras. So you can sort of see this, right? Deepak Sethi?
Jankiji, this is an extension of Deep Raj's question. Now, since the exponents of Vishishta Advaita, Dvait and Advait Vedanta, they debated and very, very acrimoniously at times. Does this mean that they were really not close enough to self? Because if they were close enough to self, then they would be seeing the same reality, etc. So that doesn't seem to be right either. So could you just kind of explain this little conundrum?
You see, we are all saying Advaita. Does that definitely mean that we are some kind of noble, evolved souls? We are all agreeing to Advaita in this class. Unfortunately, a human being is not a singularity. It may have all sorts of things. So you can't really gauge development based on what they are saying. Now, we don't even know whether these so-called Vashishta Advaitas or Dvaitas who started the program, what they originally meant. So it's very difficult. In other words, you can't answer the question because there's so many permutations and combinations are possible. It's so complex because you can't actually fix it somewhere. But the fact will always remain that as if people of similar levels will see things similarly, which we can easily see, right? You will go to a party, and in that party, there will be some people who you have a natural sort of affinity with, and some people you naturally don't seem to see eye to eye, which we can quite easily see. Like there's nothing, you can't look at that person and say there's anything wrong with that person, but you have absolutely nothing to say to that person. I mean, even in, we all stay in these buildings, and the buildings always have some kind of some get together. There's holy Milan, and there is something or the other they do. I don't know whether in US, Harry, you also have this. You have this stuff going on. So the community sort of gets together and does some. In India, it has to have food, otherwise it doesn't count. So definitely there will be food, and then of course there is whatever else there is. So now when you go for these things, often you may feel, they are nice people, nothing wrong with them, they're living reasonably harmoniously with one another, but you really have nothing to say to any of them. So you go and you do your mandatory salam sab and move on. Because after you've done your first bit of polite conversation, how are you, where are you, sort of stuff, and then what do you say after that? You have nothing to say. So you can see that at our level, we can see that there are some people who you can talk to, some people who you can't talk to, in spite of them being nice people, and you have nothing against them. It's nothing. After the first few sentences, both of you are standing there looking like, what do I say now? So you can sort of see that at our level. So you'll find that the same range continues throughout. In school, you found there were people who were good, but you had nothing much to do with them. And then maybe later on in life, somehow you met again and you got along famously. But in school, you didn't. It's not that you fought or anything, you just had nothing to say to that person. Or another example is very interesting. Suppose we set out on, we went to see flamingos. Okay, so many people came to see the flamingos. Now the thing is, the same event with somebody else, you may have refused to go. Why would you refuse to go? Same event, exactly the same thing, but you refuse to go and do it. So instinctively, I don't know if I'm making my point, but instinctively, you're willing to do things with some people and you're simply not willing to do them with some other people, though for the life of you, you don't know what's wrong with them. I mean, there is nothing wrong with them.
But that could really be because of a similarity of vasanas, similarity of gunas also. I mean, so it's very difficult to relate to somebody from a very different guna structure.
That's exactly the point. That's exactly what we're doing. Similarity of vasanas means what? Vasana is ignorance of the self. So the similarity of that is what.
Okay, so that's the connection. Vasanas, because I was trying to put this in the context of the self, but you now explained it. That vasanas is the ignorance or the amount of ignorance.
Yeah, so ignorance of the self means how far are you away? How much ignorance?
Yeah. So a tamasic person is further away from the self, from the sattvic person.
Yes, and so he will be most comfortable with other tamasic people.
Yeah. That we all experience. Yeah.
Yeah. A tamasic person, you take Krishna to him, he would rather be with another tamasic person than with Krishna. Okay. Taruna, you have something?
Yes, Hari Oman, I have a question. It is said that the lesser the desire, so the better the clarity, and you're able to see things the way they are. So my question is with the lesser part, when the desire are less, So does that mean they will be strong and they will be directed, or a person has to still work towards it? Another thing is that will
Okay,
they
let's
be
finish this one. Does the person still have to work? Yes, there are no free rides here. You have to work at every stage of the process. You will
right?
constantly have to be directed.
So and will they be related to take you to closer to the self, or it could be anything? It could be anything.
Yeah, there's work throughout, Taruna, unfortunately. At no stage can you relax. At
Right.
no stage. See, this is, you could be very close, okay? Suppose you're very close to self-realization. You better watch it, Taruna. This is a warning. Suppose you work very hard and you get very close to self-realization. At that time, your mind will go to humanity, all living creatures. Your mind will go there. You will have to redirect. See, at
Right.
every stage, distractions from a different thing. In the lower levels, your distractions are selfish interests. At the higher levels, your distractions are unselfish interests. At the very highest level, it will be verging on a selfless interest, but it's still your distraction.
Right.
So at no stage can we just chill and say, okay, now we have got enough sattva, we are going to make it to the self. No. Till the
Right.
last day, you will have to be alert to this mind of ours.
Right. And this is where we are talking about people who are in the direction of working towards the self.
They are
To
sattvic people. They may not be working towards the self, they are already sattvic.
they are
To
also
walk
suppose
towards the self is effort.
okay.
They're
So
sattvic,
people
they're noble, they're pure, but they could just be sitting there, right?
right. And people who have less desires, and the less desires are worldly desires or success or anything. That is also a possibility. They may see things clearly and still they are in the materialistic world, means having those desires. Okay.
Anything is possible. As a human being, anything is possible.
And one thing you might have answered, I missed it, that the lesser the desire, so by default the intensity will be high of those less desires, or how is it?
Yeah, I mean, it could be anything, any possibility exists.
I mean, since the clarity is when you have less desires, you have more clarity with the leftover desires. So when the clarity is more, the intensity is more with those less desires. No,
Any
not
possibility
necessarily.
can be there. The intensity can be more, can be less, can be anything. The
Okay.
clarity is independent, the desire is independent. There is no
Right.
correlation. The
So,
clarity or your intellectual capacity has to always be strengthened to deal with whatever you have. High, low, intense, not intense, all that is immaterial. They're two separate abilities or they're two separate faculties. What to use. Two separate things in your personality. No correlation. No correlation means it's not necessary that something is something. Any
okay.
combination and combination is possible.
Okay. Right. Got it. Thank you, ma'am.
Deep Raj. You can also become Anguli Mal even when you are so close to realization. Yes, you can. You can be in the jail, a criminal. But then you will need, for that to happen, your circumstances will have to be that horrible. It's not easy to do that. I mean, it's not likely, but it's possible. You can never see an external circumstance, an external situation, and say, what is the growth of this person?
Right.
Okay, so shall we continue? Anyone has anything? Brinda, Sarika, are you people okay? Or have you got lost in this conversation? Anyone?
Janki ji, a question.
Yeah, mommy.
Uh, about Anguli Mala, he would have been such a different, I mean, what kind of a nature was that, and what kind of an interaction, what kind of a dialogue with the Buddha would have turned him around? And as far as we know, it's not possible. We can't overnight just listen to some knowledge and change our ways. So
Anguli Mala is a very special case. I mean, it's just basically telling us that all these things are possible. So it's not, it is said, we say Om before every class. So what is the reason we say Om before every class? One thing is to remind ourselves what we're here for. The second interpretation given of that is that if somebody is a very highly evolved soul and they merely hear the chant of the Om, they will realize the self. In the Gita also it says that. It says that Ichha matrena Shabda Brahma Ati Vartate. I mean, even by simply desiring, I want to realize the self, they realize the self. Just that much. But for that to happen, you have to be that close, no?
So that's it. I mean, Angulimal was like miles away from, I mean, his level of hatred and how.
No, he wasn't. That's what he's saying. Oh my God, Deep Raj, what have you started now? This whole class is going to go on Anguli Mala. Everyone is going to catch hold of him. Okay. Everybody knows a story or doesn't know a story. And shall we do a story or shall we continue with our text? I think we should ask our, continue?
No, we get to learn something which is in line with the class, what is we are learning. Then we'd like to know. If it's not, then we proceed.
It is completely off the track. Let us ask our newcomers. Brinda, Sarika, you want to hear about Anguli Mala or you want to continue with the text?
I don't know the story like what the previous person said. If it's got no reference to it, we can go ahead.
Okay.
No, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
This is a problem with democracy, right? Yes, it's got nothing to do with the text at all. And we have to catch hold of Deep Raj. Deep Raj, no more references of anything or anywhere.
And beat him up.
Yes, now he lives so far away from us, we can't do anything. This is a problem. Okay. Chalo, very briefly, I'm going to tell you Anguli Mala story, okay? But then no diversion after that. And then we'll continue with the text. Anguli Mala, briefly, the brief version is, when he was born, the astrologer said that, told the king, have this child killed because he's going to be a menace to society. But that king was a Buddhist. So he said, no, I can't do all this. Let him be brought up under very good circumstances. So the father put him in the best Gurukul and got him very well educated. And this chap, this young boy, was a brilliant scholar. He was a great, everybody loved him. Everybody thought he was great. And he did all his studies beautifully. And so that caused jealousy amongst the other students. And they went and poisoned the ears of the Guru. So the Guru Patni was learning something from this chap one day. And the Guru came quietly behind and stood. Guru Patni means the wife of the teacher. Came quietly behind and stood. And they were both engrossed in the studies. So he stood there quietly. Then he got very angry. He said, is this how you treat your Guru? Your Guru has entered the room and you're just ignoring him. Get out of this place. And the Guru threw him out. This meritorious student. So he goes back home. And when he goes back home, his father says, your Guru threw you out? What did you do? You don't have place in my house. And he threw him out. Then he went to the other villagers because now this poor fellow is a young boy, he's got nothing to eat. And people said, your guru threw you out, your father threw you out, you must be a terrible guy. Don't come to us. And they left him starving and nobody would give him anything. So he went into the forest. He didn't know what to do. He got thrown out he didn't know what, he had no knowledge of what had happened so far. He just knew that his idyllic life has suddenly gone crazy. And then finally he was taken to, then finally what happened was, because he was just not, he couldn't get food, nobody would give him food, he was living in the forest. There wasn't enough for him to eat. Finally, one guy was coming in that forest and all his anger, which was, you must imagine this story, okay? Don't say, how can he be like that? All his anger started coming out. And every traveler who traversed that forest, he was a dacoit. He would kill them and he would take all their stuff and he would cut their little finger and he used to make a mala out of it, a necklace out of it. And thus he came to be called Anguli Mala. Anguli is this small finger, Anguli Mala. And that's how he became the most notorious dacoit, and the king finally had to come there to catch him, but he couldn't catch him. It's a scum over there. One day Anguli Mala was sitting on his tree and nobody was coming over there because they had all heard about this dacoit in the forest. So people were very frightened of crossing that forest. But one man came. So he quietly jumped off the tree and started going behind that man. And he started, the man seemed to be going very fast. So he was going faster and faster and running finally, trying to keep up with that man. How was he going to catch him? And he couldn't. So he said, stop, stop. So the person turned around, said, yes, my son. And Angulimal said to him, how are you moving so fast? And he said, son, I am not moving. It is you who are moving. This was the Buddha. And Angulimala, he was in the presence of Buddha. That little conversation they had over there, all his anger, all his negativity just dissolved. And he joined the mission. He followed Buddha. And then he started living among the bhikshus over there. And then the king came there. And Buddha asked him, what have you come for? And the king said, there's this horrible dacoit, I've come here to catch him. And Buddha said, if I convert him and ensure there's no further negativity, will you forgive him? So the king laughed and said, that chap, of course I will forgive him. If you can convert him, I'll forgive him. So he said, okay, consider it done. And then, of course, there was no Angulimala, right? So the matter was over. And Angulimala became a bhikshu over there. He lived with the Buddha. He grew into evolution. One day he went into the village and unfortunately he got recognized. Somebody said, this guy, he's come dressed as a bhikshu, but actually he's Angulimala. And they looked at him and they said, this is the guy who killed my father, this is the guy who killed my uncle, this is the guy who, they were really, mad at him. So they beat him with sticks, stones, and or killed him, literally. On his own version of death. And somehow Angulimal crawled his way back to Buddha's ashram. couldn't move. He was absolutely mutilated. And the Buddha said, when they beat you up, what did you feel for them? He said, nothing but love. And that night in satsang, Buddha said, Angulimala has achieved nirvana. That's the story of Angulimala. And it's a shocking story, because how can anyone convert so fast? We all are struggling, right? Nothing is happening. How did he, from where to where? So what is the answer to that? He began at a very high point. He was already very high. Then his circumstances were horrible. And that made him become who he was. So the moment Buddha's presence, he was in Buddha's presence, all that just withered away. And what was left was that last bit of evolution, which he covered with. So, Momita, it doesn't happen with us, because we haven't started where Angulimala had started. It's like titration. You remember titration? You drop it, you drop a drop, nothing happens. Then the say 50th drop, it's going to change. So 49 drop, nothing has happened. 50th drop, suddenly the whole liquid has changed. So he's at 49. One more drop, it changed. And we are at 1 and 2 and 3 and 5 and 10. So the drop is going, nothing is happening. Don't worry. The drop has to continue. It has to reach that critical mass, and only then it will change. Okay, Mamita. All right, back to our text. Right. We have to start is dialogue and discussion futile, isn't it? We finished everything, right?
Yes, we have to start the section.
So, as clarity grows up, desires reduce. As desires reduce, clarity rises. And this process is circular. This is where we had stopped last time. Now that we've understood how that distance from the self will determine how we think. Now, let us say there's a sattvic person in discussion with a tamasic person. Is there any possibility of the discussion reaching anywhere? So that is what we are about to look into and see whether we can find any answer to that. Is dialogue and discussion futile? With all these inherent differences arising from the individual's nature itself, is dialogue and discussion futile? No, one cannot say that, but there is a caveat. So is it futile? No, but there is a caveat. The discussion has to be done on the basis of the understanding of nature. The discussion has to be done on the basis of understanding of nature. Without that basic understanding of nature, any discussion is going to be futile. This understanding prevents impatience in both the parties. Why does it prevent impatience in both the parties?
Impatience arises out of not understanding that the other person is not understanding your point, because that's his nature.
But so why is impatience not going to happen if you've understood this?
Then you'll accept his nature.
Yes, it's like you understand that somebody is in first standard. So you're not going to become impatient that he doesn't understand 10th standard stuff. You understand that he's not going to understand. You figured that much out. So you're not going in that direction. Further dialogue can then be thought-provoking, if not path-changing, because you've understood where the other person is coming from. How are you going to tell that person? Have you noticed that different reasons appeal to different types of people? In fact, salesmen are very good at this. When they're looking at the woman, they give a certain type of spiel. They're looking at the man, they give another type of spiel. They're looking at the child, they give a third type of spiel. They don't give the same reasons to everybody, because they are dealing with the human being in front of them. That's what you have to learn to do. If you do this, then dialogue can be thought-provoking, is not path-changing. It's changing your path, right? You had no intention of buying that shirt and it made you buy it. Changed your path. Because who knows that the cause of disharmony, that the cause of the disharmony is something within me and not the other person. When we read this, it's always the assumption I am right and you're wrong, and now I'm going to explain to you. But who knows that the cause of the disharmony is something within me and not the other person? Something that I am not willing to face. We should first check that, no? Another advantage of dialogue based on this understanding is that it can make us discuss actions and not thoughts and concepts. So first portion is clear. We need the discussion, but it's on the basis of understanding the other person, so that we're not impatient this person hasn't understood it. We understand that we have not said it in the way that this person is going to understand. And can also question ourselves. Is disharmony happening because I'm not understanding something? Likely, right? So that's the first part of it. The second part of it, and the more practical part of it, is the first paragraph clear? Does anyone have a question on the first paragraph?
Ma'am, just one question is that means we understand that I have not told him in a manner where he can understand. So when we understand this, the possibility of him understanding gets better, or still there is a chance he may not understand. And then we have to understand that this gap will always be there.
Yes, both possibilities.
Right.
Some things cannot be, right? I mean, if it's a small child, how much are you going to explain E is equal to MC square? There's only a certain point that you can go.
Right.
But the second part is also, I have to be alert. Is there something I am not getting over here?
Right. That we usually miss.
Yes, that is the easy part. It's always you are not getting, but hello, I may not be getting something. So I have to
Right.
stop and check whether I am getting.
I am getting the other person's perspective right or not, or his capability of understanding right or not.
Anything, or even my own incapacity to understand a certain point. Because
Right.
I don't agree with you doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong, right? It may be I am incapable of understanding. Maybe that person is in fifth standard and I'm in first. Our assumption is always I'm in fifth standard, he's in first.
Yes.
But we can question that assumption.
Right.
Especially because life is full of so many different types of things. Just because I know X doesn't mean I will know Y. In fact, a very interesting study, and I've forgotten the gentleman's name who did it. What is it? Dick Kruger? I can't remember his name. He did this study, a very, very fascinating study, that people who are competent in something believe that they are average, and those who are incompetent believe they're good at it. And I think the best example of this has to be in music. All those who sing really well tell you that they don't sing. And those who can't sing have very little compunction in singing, I've noticed. They will loudly sing. No problem. It's very interesting. You see in the karaoke things and all, people are going on stage and singing merrily. I mean, nice, they can enjoy themselves, but, but we often hope that we were not there when they were enjoying themselves. But it's a study. I mean, you can look it up. That when you're very good at something, you believe you're average, and when you're not good at all at it, you believe you're pretty good at it. That
Right,
learning through
true.
effect. Correct, Deepraj. Deepak Sethi?
Jankiji, this paragraph is a very interesting one because these are two different positions that we have talked about. One, to put it in your metaphor, I believe I'm in class 10, he's in class 4, I deal with him accordingly. The other is, I don't know who's in class 10, I may be the one who's in class 4. Now, given that both these possibilities exist, and I must be open to it as per this paragraph, how do I conduct myself when a dialogue starts?
Yeah, we are about
no-
to come. We are about to come to that. That's the next
Okay.
paragraph. That's
Okay,
the practical aspect of this.
Yeah, because you need to make up your mind somewhere along the way which position you are in and then deal accordingly.
Yeah, but it's sometimes very difficult. How can you know?
Yeah,
Like,
sometimes.
what if
I mean, how do you know that? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
If I'm incompetent in something,
Yeah.
I'm bound to think I'm good at it.
Yeah. So you must tell us how to deal with that practical part also.
Next paragraph, we're doing it.
Okay.
And it's a very practical thing because if we can do so much, we'll be much better off. So let's see it. Let's see whether the advertisement is as good as the actual point. Okay, read the next paragraph together. Another advantage of dialogue based on this understanding. What understanding about the differences of nature, about the distance from the self, is that it can make us discuss actions and not thoughts and concepts. Okay, that deserves repeating. Another advantage of dialogue based on this understanding is that it can make us discuss actions and not thoughts and concepts. If we cannot agree on our views, we can try to agree on actions. That kind of harmony is way, I can't write that, so there's no way, is way more easily achieved. Way more. Discuss an action, not an opinion. Suppose a wife says, okay, look down. I want you to be a loving husband. This cannot be communicated to your husband and then he so what? Okay, so this kind of sentence if you do, his response is that I am a loving husband and you are not a loving wife or whatever. This is going over. Easier way of dealing with this. I would like you to hug me every morning. It's an action. When you say I want you to be more loving, what is it that you want me to do? This is much easier because you're dealing now with an action. Or the husband can say, don't nag. That's getting nowhere because now there'll be a whole discussion on whether this nagging is happening and you don't do your things and therefore I have to remind you, and this discussion goes nowhere. Easier would be, I would appreciate it if you message me your point. What do you want done? Just send me a message. What do you want done? All right. So what do I want done? I want you to just send me a WhatsApp message. That what is it you want? Simple, right? If we can learn to agree on actions, then harmony is more easily achieved. People cannot be made to see things our way, but sometimes they may agree to change certain behavior. If this happens, it's good enough for the harmony we seek. So all the time trying to get people to agree with our views is a headache because they don't. And you can argue till you're frothing at the mouth and nothing will happen. And we've all experienced this, haven't we? So much easier. An action. Let's discuss an action. And if we both agree on some action, well, then it's on harmony. Yeah. You never take me out for dinner. Okay, how often would you like to go out for dinner? And if we come to an agreement on the number, we're good. Instead of arguing on how often should we be going out for dinner, don't argue all that. This was way easier than expected, right? Okay, we can go to the next topic. Gaining knowledge. This is another big thing in life. Gaining knowledge. What does it mean to gain knowledge? So the thesis is gaining knowledge, expansion in thinking. What then is gaining knowledge? Gaining knowledge is changing one's perspective, not necessarily learning some answers. Gaining knowledge is changing one's perspective, not necessarily learning some answers. This is the baseline difference between the study of Vedanta and any other study. This is the baseline difference. You're not really expected to learn any of the answers. Just expected to see things differently. You're not expected, but learning Vedanta, you just see it differently. A teacher or school provides information. A guru changes one's perspective. You know, the sentence is not really true. What it is referring to is the purpose of the school is to give you information. But the purpose of the guru is to change your perspective. And because that is the purpose of the guru gives you different types of information based on who we are. Okay? Otherwise, you know, like in a school or college, you have to cover so much portion. But that's not how education really takes place. Because each person moves at a different pace. And therefore, the relationship with the teacher is one of the most personal relationships. Because he's dealing with you, the human being, not with any aspect of it. General knowledge is the collection of much information, such as what is the capital of Kenya, the language of Mauritius, or the main export of Australia. We're impressed with people who know a lot about politics or geography or economics. But knowledge is not merely that. Gaining knowledge is a change of state or level. Gaining knowledge is a change of state or level. So truly gaining knowledge means returning to your original nature. And if your knowledge, whatever it is not helping you do that, then what is the point? Because you know no more of the truth than before. People desiring to learn are secure in the surety of knowledge. People desiring to learn, a student, feel very secure in the surety of knowledge. They want to know something in particular. They expect their teacher to teach them that. And especially now, we're very, very particular. The students go to the university, they're very, very particular. What they're learning, from whom they're learning. They expect their teacher to teach them that. Arjuna in the second, oh gosh, this is a mistake. Momita, please remember, okay? This is Arjuna in the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita asks Krishna, tell me conclusively, which is better, knowledge or action? He's expecting a particular answer. He's sure it has to be one or the other. Should I do knowledge or action? He's sure it has to be one of the two. He has restricted his guru's wisdom to a binary answer. He expects either an X or a Y answer. But Krishna is not to be so restricted. His role is to change Arjuna's level, not answer his question. When Arjuna starts seeing things from a higher perspective, the question and the answer will both dissolve. That is knowledge. When the question and the answer both dissolve. He will no longer need to ask Krishna questions. Whenever a teacher answers a question, he's always answering a person. And that is sometimes difficult for us to get. Two different people asking the same question may get different answers. He's talking to somebody. And that sounds very odd to us. How is it possible? Whoever asks 2 + 2, the answer has to be 4, no? Yes, the answer has to be 4. And that, I suppose, is the creativity of the teacher. How do you give their answer, the correct answer, and yet to the person? We see, if you see Krishna answering Arjuna's questions in the Gita, you find him, he's talking to a person. Do you achieve what is uncomplicated, no? Yeah. Take it or leave it. That's the way the cookie crumbles. True knowledge is not the collection of information, but the effacing of ignorance. There are many who, replete with scholastic degrees, yet know little. Not every doctorate is knowledgeable. Google knows everything. Actually, Mahesh, we'll have to update this, no? Your best friend, ChatGPT, will have to say. ChatGPT knows everything. But is Google capable of running a business or raising a child? See the difference between this? Artificial intelligence can answer any question. But is it capable of running a business or raising a child? Because at the end of the day, it's not all the various theories that count. If you ask ChatGPT, it will give you a bunch of theories on the best way to raise a child. You say, oh, fantastic, what a great answer. And Mahesh is totally impressed with ChatGPT. But if you bring ChatGPT in the house and say, okay, now run the business or bring up a child or cook us a meal. Can't do any of it. Being well informed is good for cocktail party conversations. But being knowledgeable is critical for living life. Information is what one knows. Knowledge is the coherence of vision and its execution in action. Nice, no? Knowledge is the coherence of vision and its execution and action. How much does the vision and the execution match? When we are talking highest sattva. When we're living, it is lowest tamas. And what kind of knowledge is that? Our head is like an old mansion. It has many wonderful things. This is so true, right? How many wonderful ideas are there in each one's head? Everybody has these fantastic thoughts. Our head is like an old mansion. It has many wonderful things. It has also collected a lot of junk. For this mansion has not been cleaned for the last 30 or 40 or 50 years. Yet not everything old can be thrown away. To get the good stuff to look good and be useful, it has to be segregated from the bad stuff. And everything arranged well so that the mansion becomes a delight for all. New things have to be introduced, but not any random thing. This segregating, cleaning, decluttering, and adding will bring about home improvement. Merely adding is creating a further mess, not bringing about a grand mansion. So when we do knowledge, we have this grand mansion, beautiful old mansion, having many wonderful things. And now we want to improve it. So what do? We get in more beautiful things. It's not helping. When will we get that? It's simply not helping. Bringing in more and more knowledge, more and more information, more and more fascination with so many things out there. Not helping. It's called Viveka and Vairagya, renunciation, in Vedantic terms. Viveka is discrimination, Vairagya is renunciation. So knowledge is called Viveka and Vairagya. Means this form of knowledge. Viveka means discriminating between the higher and the lower. Vairagya means giving up the lower. Viveka is like distinguishing between what needs to be kept in the mansion and what needs to be discarded. Vairagya is the ability to then give up what needs to be discarded. So if you have correct Viveka, how can you not have Vairagya? It's not possible. If you have correct discrimination, how can you not have perfect renunciation? It's simply not possible. Because if you can tell what is the higher and the lower, then you will discard the lower. Suppose you have a Nokia phone, that old Nokia phone, ordinary phone, and you have a smartphone. Which one will you discard?
The Nokia phone.
Huh? Yeah.
The Nokia.
If you have that whatever kerosene stove, remember that kerosene stove? Deepraj, you know what's a kerosene stove? I don't know. You've seen it? I don't know if any of the youngsters have ever even seen a kerosene stove anymore, but they're, oh, no, do, you have to do. And then it wouldn't light and all that sort of thing. If you had a kerosene stove or you had a gas which we have. What is this thing called? Piped gas. Which one will you discard? How is it possible that you know the better and you're not leaving the low? How is that even possible? So Viveka and Vairagya necessarily go together. The gaining of knowledge is the setting right of this mansion. It is not adding stuff to the mansion, it's setting it right. One's current knowledge is the sum total of all of one's thoughts. That is our knowledge. What is my knowledge? What is in my mansion? Everything that is there. That is my mansion. To gain knowledge means to review, change, and organize these thoughts. To do home improvement means we have to review, change, reorganize. Simple, right? Okay. So that's it as far as this chapter is concerned. You all want to do summary next time or not necessary? You all want to do summary?
We should do some.
Okay.
We will do some.
Summary? Okay. So next time we'll do summary. Okay. All right. Hari Om.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Hari Om. Thank you, Janki ji.
Thank you, Janki ji. Hari Om.
Hari Om Janki ji.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hari Om.